Hey guys, we got something really special for you today. We've got Sam and Seth Kuntz from Kuntz Bros Racing out of Georgia. These guys race the fastest box truck in the South. So these guys have is it a FedEx truck?
No, it was
a Marita bread truck.
Bread rolls.
They have a bread roll truck that runs 13-second quarter miles, waxes Corvettes and stuff. And we have one of their projects here. We're going to slap it on the dyno and see what this 4bt Cummins swapped Ford Excursion can do. Check it out. All right, so this is a 2005 Excursion. It used to have a Triton V10, is that what they call it?
Yep.
How many liters is that engine?
6.8 liters.
So you're like half the liters right now?
Uses all the fuel.
Yeah. It got, if you're lucky, 12 to 14 miles to the gallon.
Yeah.
So 12 to 14 lucky. With the gas engine.
Yep.
Towing 6.
What did it get driving out to Utah?
23 all the way out here.
23
we
miles
went
per gallon.
Almost 900 miles on a tank.
Yeah.
We went from
Instead
Jefferson, Georgia to Dallas without filling up.
Yep.
So Georgia to Dallas without filling up. I mean, incredible fuel mileage. So is that why you went with a 4-cylinder instead of a 6?
That was part of the reason, definitely because of the fuel mileage and economy, and also because, I don't know, it's kind of become our thing after the box truck was 4BTs, and proving that they can push big, heavy stuff and make a lot of power.
So what does this engine make stock normally?
130 this one was from the factory.
Yep. So this is a 130 horsepower engine. Now you 4BT fans out there, a lot of guys think they push them to 130, 140, they're going to shorten the life. How much power do you think this one's making? We're about to put on the dyno, but what's your guess?
I'm going with 330.
330.
Yep.
Woo!
And
that's a lot out of 4 cylinders. What do you think?
I'm guessing right around 315. What I think it'll be.
So usually, if a 6-cylinder with this turbo makes 400, I think it's doing well. So I'm going to go a little lower. I'm going to guess like 290. So
no faith.
I've never driven it, but I'm just like, I mean, I have seen a 4BT make 500 on Tom Souter's little land speed racing, and the dyno operator that normally operates that dyno to test semi tractors started walking away, because usually that's what he sees, a 15-liter Cummins or Cat liter, and he's just like, oh my gosh, this is gonna blow up. So yeah, they can handle
it. It's made almost 50 pounds of boost. So
well, the other thing too is it's whatever power it does make, it's been making that same power now for almost 25,000 miles, and
so you're not drastically shortening the life of the engine, turning up.
Absolutely not.
We did the conversion 3 years ago now, 2.5 years ago, something like that.
So quick rundown on the engine modifications, starting with the turbo. What's different on the turbo?
It's an HE351, just off your 3rd gen Dodge, but we put a 6 cm housing on it.
So that's a 60mm turbo, but you use the exhaust housing off of the factory HX30 turbo.
Stock they would have 9 cms.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a housing off the HX30 that actually came on the 4BT to begin with, and we did that so we can retain the spool up.
So it kind of chokes the turbo down a little bit
on
the exhaust side, but you don't have as much exhaust flow with the 4-cylinder, so it might have been a really good move.
Yeah.
We'll see what the dyno shows. But getting over to you, what's different on like the top end? Has the head been ported or anything? Stock head?
It's a stock head. It's literally bone stock. We haven't touched it. Stock valves.
Just some upgrade valve springs, probably.
It's got some 60-pound valve springs. It's got a 181 208 Colt cam in it.
Oh, so it has aftermarket cam.
Yep.
Okay. So it's got a bigger cam, stock head, valve springs to handle a little more RPM and boost. What about how are you keeping the head gasket intact?
It's just ARP 2000 head studs.
So just the cheaper ARP head studs, and you're good there.
Yeah,
what about the bottom end? You guys rebuild it, new pistons?
It's got ARP rod bolts, but everything's essentially a stock rebuild. It has like a marine bowl piston in it. A lot of power-driven parts too. Injectors, Lurie valves, push rods, even the air filter. The hot rod lift pump. So plenty of performance mods done to it.
But as far as engines in general, it's still not really that radical. It's still a
No.
factory piston.
No.
You guys don't have the ring gap or anything, or is it pretty
No,
much
it's-
factory ring
yeah.
gap?
It's a little bit bigger than stock, but nothing.
But it's very tight
outrageous.
because I mean it has almost zero blow by.
Yeah.
We changed the oil before we came, and put about 500 miles on it and checked the oil again, and you could still see through it on the stick. So.
So, you know, pretty mild in the world of power driven. Maybe for the average 4BT guy, this is kind of more radical. 4BT guys don't seem to do as much in my experience.
Yeah.
Maybe you guys feel different because that you live and breathe them. But
Well, the problem always too is 4BTs always get a bad name because nobody ever does the P pumps. Every 4BT swap you've ever seen just about has been a VE rotary. And those
that
things,
rotary
You're leaving a lot on the
they-
table.
Yeah, they cannot do the fuel. Like
I think
P
the
pump.
last one we had, we barely. We cracked 250 horsepower. I can't remember. You'd have to watch the YouTube video, but it was well under 300 horsepower as I remember. But anyway, so we're gonna slap this thing on the dyno. But I mean, it should be a good runner. So 320, 330,
330, yeah.
330, 315, 290. Let's see what it does.
All right.
All right, so the numbers are in. 406 horsepower, 920 foot-pounds of torque, 56 pounds of boost. That's a lot of boost with an HE351 turbo. And 1900 was the peak EGT we saw. In fact, one of the runs, when it was a little bit warmer, we had like 1930. So this thing is hot. It's begging for more air. So let's see what it does with that power-driven ported cylinder head on it. There's again, that's going back to red one. Why are we doing a head swap? What are we putting on this week? This work, you don't make 400. No. All right, so I've got Seth Kuntz in here with me. Now, Seth, what's this cylinder head from?
That is a stock 4BT head off of like a case backhoe. It's the one that's in our Excursion.
So we pulled the head, or these guys pulled the head off the Excursion here. Mm-hmm. We've got the Superflow 1020 Flowbench. We're gonna see what a stock 4BT head flows. Now, the reason we picked this head is one, we want to upgrade theirs with a ported power driven head, because giving more power, but two, This is a fresh build, what, 25,000 miles on it?
25,000.
And a machine shop redid the valve job and everything. And then your brother, Sam, did a little bit of blending.
Yeah, a little bit with a die grinder. And
So just cleaned it up. Not a lot of porting, but just cleaned up. So to us, this is the best case scenario 4-cylinder head you're going to find on the road today.
Yeah, pretty much.
There's probably not going to be one better than this because this is such low mileage and it's just cleaned up.
Yeah.
So we want to see what it flows. Then we'll put the power-driven stage 1 4BT head on here. And we'll see how they stack up. Check it out.
yeah, they both.
Put that up. This up. Pulling it at 28 inches, 59 CFM. We'll just round to the nearest whole number.
All right.
So 59. I'm going to go to 200. Raise the range there. Basically, it's only got a certain flow range. That one can only read up to 98 CFM accurately. So when I raise it to range 5, it can read up to 200. But when you have it on the 200 range setting, it's off by 1 or 2 CFM sometimes. Sometimes right on when it's like at 59, and so that's why it has range settings. It's
I gotcha.
pretty normal. But it's probably because this one's not plugged. All right, so now we've got the power-driven stage 1 ported 4BT head. Now, we saw some big numbers from your stock head. So
Yeah.
apparently these Kuntz boys are street racers, got some dirty tricks up their sleeve, because I've never seen a stock Cummins flow 180 CFM on the exhaust side.
Apparently Sam's pretty good with a die grinder.
After we looked under the soot, you can see some like uneven porting. Tell it he did some blending. So we don't know to what level he ported it, but it definitely flowed. So unless the Flowbench is reading really high today, so we're about to see what this one does. Cross my fingers we beat it, but you never know. Sometimes when a guy spends a whole day on the bench with a die grinder, he can removes pounds of metal. He can make things flow. But
the way those ports look, it looks like that thing should flow.
Yeah, this thing's really hogged out. I think we definitely beat on the intake side. I don't know the exhaust. That was monster flow there, so let's check it out. Let's start on the exhaust, huh?
Yep.
Okay, so we're at 100 here.
All right.
Okay, ready to go. Let's do this. thing. 179. All right, the results are in from the Flowbench. Now, as we saw the bigger than expected flow numbers in your head, we looked a little closer, and you guys may have ported it more than just a little cleanup.
Looks like Sam went a little.
So he might have even removed a pound or two of metal, but I mean, it's not like extensive porting, but he did pretty good, honestly. So we're just going to go right down and read the numbers to you, and then we can zoom in on this. But we also float a stock 12-valve head for you off camera, bone stock, genuine Cummins, with brand new valves in it. So there was any corrosion. It had been hot tanked, so it'd be a brand new but genuine Cummins. Just going down at 100, nobody really cares. At 200 lift, stock Cummins flowed 108. Your ported one flowed 104. The PDD one flowed 112. So a mild 8 CFM gain versus what was on there. The reason we care about what was on their 4BT is, one, it's a 4BT head, and two, we're going to dyno it and see what it does. So 8 CFM at 200, 14 CFM gain at 300. PDD head flowed 155. What'd your guys' flow?
141.
141. At 400, 173.
156.
156, so a 17 gain. 179.
The 159.
So a 20 CFM gain at 500. Now, we flowed these all the way up to 700. A lot of guys say, why do you go to 700? The cam doesn't lift it that much. We ran some math with the cam you're running. What does it open out? 550? Oh, wait, the intake's a little less. It's
the intake was like
475 or 480 thousandths.
And then the exhaust was 550.
The exhaust was like 550.
Yep.
But the reason we flow it to a higher number is if the port stalls out, generally that means at the higher airspeed that you get on a real engine with boost, where this is only doing a 1 PSI drop, a real engine, it's got 20 pounds stock, and you guys are running 56. So the airspeed's a lot greater when you're putting that much boost into the motor, that much density. And so what's interesting is the stock head stops at a 400 lift. The stock head flows 152, and then it goes 157 CFM all the way to 700. Doesn't gain at all.
Stalls out hard.
Stalls out. Your guys' gains, it slows way down. It only gains 2 CFM at 700. But it stops at 163, and the PDD head peaked out at 186. Okay, so it's important that a head doesn't stall out when it's a forced induction application, because the airspeed's a lot higher on a real engine when you're putting 20, 30. How much boost were you guys making?
56 on ours.
So 56 pounds of boost. The Flowbench operates at 28 inches of vacuum, which is equal to 1 PSI of pressure drop. So the airspeed's a lot different. So if it stalls out with 1 inch of vacuum or 1 PSI drop, you can imagine what it is on a real engine, that the differential pressure might be 30 or 50 pounds. So
going to back up hard.
So it's really important. So the big thing we noticed, the stock head that's not ported 12 valve. Now the 12 valve port is the same as the 4BT, but I don't have a stock 4BT. We have yours, which is close to stock, but it's
modified.
It's modified, and all the ones I have in stock are modified. So. But it stalls out at 157 CFM, and it does that from basically 400 lift on up. It's right there in that mid to upper 150 CFM's done. Your head slowly gained all the way up to 700 where we tested it. What'd you peak out at?
Right at 163.
And the PDD ported stage 1 4BT head peaked out at 186 at 700, but it never stalled out. The gains slowed down, but it never stalled out. And that's why we ended up with that 23 CFM gain. Now the exhaust side was a little different. The power driven head at 200 was 9 CFM behind. At 300 we were 10 behind. So sometimes when you port heads, you lose port velocity at lower lift. You're sacrificing to get better gains up top. I'm really interested to throw this on the dyno and see if it gains or if it's a moot point, if the boost changes. But
well, with the intake, how much it gained on the intake?
But we gained the intake, we lost all exhaust. By the time we're at 400 lift, we're dang near even. The power driven head's at 175. Yours is at
172.
72. The stock head's at 157. Let's jump clear up to 700 lift. Power driven head peaked out at 199 CFM, so flows more on the exhaust than the intake. Where did yours peak out?
Ours was 187.
Which is huge. So power driven is only a 12 CFM gain, and then the stock one peaked out at 168.
Yep.
And the stock one never stalled on the exhaust side, so
it slowed down a good bit.
Yeah, it did slow down, but it never stalled. But like I said, I can't wait to throw this on the dyno back to back. We're giving you the actual numbers we measured because it's no point in us making up numbers and then throw it on the dyno. This is what it did today on this Flowbench. Can't wait to get this sucker on the dyno and see what it does. Guys, I'm excited to tell you about the Batmo wings. These rocker pedestals, they have bat wings. What that means is you need them on your truck. No, really. Back in the day, there was this turbo, and they were marketing it. This compressor wheel is a Batmo wheel, and everybody had to have it because they had these bat wing shape. And they said they flowed the most, and they don't even make them anymore. That's how awesome they were. Well, this product isn't like this, but these rocker pedestals, they do have little wings so they don't wag. They're made out of a better alloy. They have upgraded oiling groove. These things are awesome. Even better, they're pre-machined for your head studs. So no longer do you have to take your stock rocker pedestal, machine a stupid groove in this soft metal and to install head stud. You can buy a set of these, you're upgrading your truck. Nice 17.4 stainless alloy, beautiful power driven diesel logo on there, made in the USA, 100%. Every bit of this thing was made, manufactured, processed, assembled in America. So American parts going in some American muscle here. Ford with a Cummins in it. We're learning like this down the road. All right, the results are in. So this thing busted out 435 horsepower with the ported head. Now the old number was 406, 918 torque. So we picked up a solid 29 horsepower. That is not a bad gain. So on a 400-ish horsepower truck We picked up a little bit more than 5%. That's a great gain. In fact, 10% would have been a 40.6 horsepower gain. We picked up 29, so we're actually well over 5%. What's really interesting that we would expect, but still interesting, is the total boost number actually dropped. Let me pull up the little graph here and we can kind of check it out a little closer. Made peak power at like 2,600 RPM, made peak torque at 2,300 RPM. With the non-ported head, the OEM head, it made peak torque a little bit earlier, which you'd expect, because with the lower flowing head, it's going to peak out earlier because it doesn't continue to gain flow or power as the RPM goes up. Peaked out at 2275, so 25 RPM, but the horsepower peaked out and quit climbing at 2475, where this one went clear up to 2600. Total boost dropped a solid 3 psi. So we dropped 3 pounds of boost, gained 29 horsepower, truck runs cleaner. What's most amazing, these guys were checking the EGT. Before, EGTs were pretty high. It was getting well up there into that high 1750, 1800. A couple runs when we really loaded it hard, actually got to 1900 EGT. Right now, at the end of the run, the EGT peaks at 1500. So we smacked a solid 200 minimum, maybe even 300, 350 EGTs off of this thing the whole way, which is fantastic. That's an awesome gain. Yeah, so the ported head worked. I'm actually surprised. I was only expecting like 15 or 20 horse. 29, I'm pleasantly surprised. All right, guys, it is late at night. We've been thrashing on it. How long have you been thrashing on this? 2.5 days?
3 days, 2.5, yeah.
2.5 days.
2.5 days.
It's hard to be animated. It's almost midnight on like day 3 of this project, but we're done. Are you happy with the results?
Heck yeah.
Just first.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, it did everything we thought and more.
I mean, my guess was 315. Yours was 330.
Yeah, we
And
beat
my
it
guess
from the
was
beginning.
295,
Yeah.
but we beat my guess by over 100.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm pleasantly.
I can't hate on the
surprised.
4BT. So if you guys didn't catch it earlier, it picked up a solid 29 horsepower gain with the ported head. One thing we found out that was really interesting on the Flowbench, your head that apparently you worked over in the past and you forgot, flowed a little better than we expected.
Yeah.
So we picked up a gain over your ported head.
Right. We
And you're no rookie home porter. Is that the first head you've ever ported?
Not quite, no. I ported enough to forget I ported that one. We ported both the intake and the exhaust on that one, so we were definitely better than stock. So it's kind of hard to say this is a ported head to stock head comparison on the numbers that we're looking at.
And your exhaust numbers were actually pretty
oh my
dang
gosh,
good. They were quite a bit better than
we
stock
came
head.
here with an engine that made pretty good power, but it just like anybody's probably used to, it's going to be smoky. The EGTs are going to be high, and so this was really
that was your goal, right?
See.
The
Yeah.
EGTs were uncomfortably high. You've changed turbos. Did you have compounds before and they just weren't working?
Yeah, and it's always made good power. Always made good boost, but you can never get that clean burning, cool burning, usable power. And anybody who drives their truck every day is going to understand what we're talking about. And this head really, it made a night and day difference for that.
And what was the EGT drop? Who's watching the gauge? You were driving.
Yeah, that was me.
What did you see
We
there,
were
really?
making
what was the highest you saw?
We were making almost 1900 EGTs, the other night when we were here, and now we can't get it to go over like 1550.
To the floor as hard as you can push
that's
it.
full fuel, full boost.
So you're 3, maybe even 400 degree drop over what it came as.
Absolutely.
I can't believe it.
That's
we also dropped total boost.
Yeah,
it was like
about 3 psi is what we saw on the graph, 2.5, 3, which you'd expect on there. I actually thought it would drop more boost, but now that I saw the numbers of your head, it's like, well, we didn't free up the exhaust that much. The intake, we picked up some good flow there, but I'm trying to think what else. Those power-driven rocker pedestals, you guys are the first ones to ever use those. Did they install easy, hard, just like stock?
Just like stock.
Just a lot beefier. Nice little logo on there. You can see it nicely, and a really solid quality product.
Yeah, you can tell just looking at it, comparing the stock to one you have, there's no way that yours is going to move. You can kind of tell, you can see it almost on the head where the stock ones were moving slightly.
Yep.
You can tell yours isn't not going to move.
You got to be careful though. If you're ever doing like a warm retorque or something, you have the valve covers off. They oil a lot better.
Yeah,
than stock
they
ones,
start pushing oil up pretty.
We had a little bit of oil all over the top of the head there.
We may have done some oil mods.
Yeah, they worked.
We don't like galled rocker arms around here, and that's kind of it's a street part, but we also wanted to be able to use on race trucks. So we kind of gave it some race technology that maybe kind of learned over the time.
Oh, yeah.
So then, final question: do you guys have a ported head on Little Debbie? I mean, are you going to keep running that, or are you going to try to take one of these?
I don't know. Might have to use a PDD head here.
Might have to get a runner cut off one of them.
Yeah.
That's the problem. We don't have a cut off
CNC
runner one yet. Maybe someday we'll build a hot rod 4BT. Maybe you guys can cut a runner off one.
Yeah, let's do
that
it.
level.
Yep.
But anyway, guys, thanks for following along. This was a lot of fun. It's really fun playing on the dyno. These guys can attest to it. It's so fun getting that instant feedback of, did this add power, did it not?
Absolutely, yeah. It makes it so much easier to actually figure out what your changes are doing, and rather than like, I think it's faster.
Yeah, there's no guessing.
There's no guessing to it. No, you made more power. Or you lost power.
We'll catch you guys in the next video. This is a rowdy setup. These guys are legit. Seth and Sam Kuntz, they are hardcore. They were razzing me because I was driving this old Trailblazer I have. They're like, "Gas, what's wrong with this piece of crap?" I'm like, guys, it's just a beater, and yeah. Anyway, it was a lot of fun. These guys are hardcore, and it was a blast.
That's good times. Thanks, Will.
Appreciate it, man.
See you in the next video.